Hello and welcome back to Practical Knife Reviews. Today we have probably one of the weirdest knives you're ever going to see to review. This is a homemade knife to the best of our knowledge. It was given to me by my grandfather, and it was given to him by...
Liam Warden.
I thought it was given to him by Uncle Fred.
Oh, okay.
So a great uncle gave it to him, and we have no idea where he got it from. So this really... it literally could be a one-of-a-kind piece, and I'm pretty sure it is. So what we have here is just a cheap leather sheath. Let me point out one thing about this. There is almost no retention within this leather sheath, so if you recline at all, the knife comes all the way out to the loop, so you've got that much exposed blade. So if you're wearing this, you have to be a little bit careful. But let's look at the knife itself, because that's what this show is all going to be about. And well, you can see, if any of you have ever seen a knife anything like this before, let me know, but I'm gonna highly doubt that. So this blade is an old file that had been cut into a clip point. The heat treat's actually fairly good on it. I was just using it outside to chop out some invasives, and I've been using it for the last almost week in preparation of this review. But it's the handle. I mean, there's a lot of knives that have previously made out of file steel, but the handle is really what separates this knife from just about everything else. And you can see right there, there's dog heads. So we call this the dog head knife. And to the best of my knowledge, so the blade here, as I said, is an old file, but to the best of my knowledge, this handle, the person made a cast of their dogs and then poured, I guess, aluminum, probably. Not sure what steel it is, but I'm thinking it's aluminum. It's relatively light. I mean, it's a big chunk of metal, so it's heavy, but for its size, it's light. They poured aluminum around the blade to kind of cast the handle on with the dog heads on it. So this is really just an absolutely bizarre handle. In terms of how it feels in your hand, it's actually not super uncomfortable to grip it. But the thing is your pinky ends up, I have fairly large hands, but this handle with the finger grooves is really large. And if you try to put your fingers into the finger grooves, it's pretty uncomfortable. But if you just grip it normally, it's not that bad actually. But next we're gonna take some measurements of it. Not that the measurements are really going to matter for you, because I doubt that you're going to find one of these to buy, but we'll do it anyway, just for the sake of doing it. Okay, so the length of it's 10.5 inches long, the blade is 6 inches long, and it's just about all cutting edge. So 4-inch handle, 6-inch blade. It's a pretty big knife. Although, let's measure the height of this blade. Since it's an old file, there was only a limited amount of space that they could use. It's, about 5/8 of an inch tall, which is pretty narrow for a 6-inch long blade. Now let's get the weight. And this is where this knife is really gonna fall down, because it's pretty heavy. I mean, it's all metal. So we're looking at 224 grams, which is 8 ounces. Oops. If we add the sheath in, 9.7 ounces, 276 grams. So it's a heavy knife. Now, you're not going to be carrying this for EDC, unless you're me, because I'm crazy. But I think that's been established on the channel long ago. But let's say you are carrying it. Can you get an edge on it? Whoop, that was not a good start. Now, like I said, I just came inside from cutting out some invasives, so the edge on it is not quite as keen as it was before I went out, but you can actually get an edge on it. It'll cut. Now, when I look at the camera, I mess up, but I mean, it's sharp enough right now, and that's after chopping wood for close to an hour I was out there. Now let's take a look at cardboard. just for the sake of that, here's our cardboard. And this is a little bit more difficult because the geometry of the blade, it gets pretty thick pretty quick, but you can do it. You have to push a little bit more, but it gets through it. Ma, what do you think of this knife?
It's crazy with the handle. I think the handle itself is a weapon. It's probably not as heavy as it looks, but I think you could just bonk somebody on the top of the head with the back of the handle and knock them out.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun one. It's one of the strangest knives I've ever seen anywhere, because it wasn't... I mean, there's some mass-produced knives by companies based in China that have really strange designs and whatnot. This is something that it tried to be like cute, and it just is, it's strange, but I like it nonetheless. But knives are tools, so let's go and take this out and give it a try outside. We'll be right back. Okay, and are the numbers going up now? Okay, take 3 of the dog head knife. The first time, Mom took a picture and we only realized that after we had finished the entire review. And then the second time, well, we had an interruption. Well, one of our neighbors just tested positive for COVID and they wanted to let us know that. So that was the second take. So now we're on to take 3 and we'll see what interrupts us this time. But until then, we're going to take a look at how the dog head knife does in practical usage. Now, I know this probably doesn't seem like the most practical knife in the world, but believe it or not, I've actually used this knife a lot for hacking at stuff. Like I said earlier in the video, I was just removing invasives out with this, and I've been doing that basically the whole week. I chopped down a tree with it, an entire buckthorn tree, which is an invasive, about 4 inches in diameter or so, 4 or 5 inches in diameter maybe, as well as a ton of Japanese barberry, which is just a really nasty shrub. So I've been doing that all week with this, and we'll take a look at how it does on some other practical applications now. So we're going to do some batoning. This is pine. Pine is a softwood, and yeah, we'll just see how it goes through. And you can see the geometry for this. Well, I kind of twisted in there, and there's a knot right there. It actually goes through halfway decent, probably better than you would expect. I'll come at an angle just for the sake of doing so. Yeah, you can break down pine quite easily with that. Let's take a look at some. This is red oak, as always, one of the hardest woods that we've got in our forest here. But there's a piece hanging loose. We'll leave it, it'll come off. So, a little bit harder to get into, but once we get into it, well, this is probably not the best piece to use. The first time that we recorded this, I was going right through a knot on it, and it seems like I've hit that same knot this time. But, despite going through a knot in this wood, you still can split it. It's not the best batoner in the world, but you definitely can do it. I just want that little piece off. So yeah, for breaking down wood, it works okay. Now let's take a look at how it does on feather sticking. I might as well use the same ones I used last time so you can see. This is from the aborted, well, not really aborted, the fake first video. This is the pine. It's a soft wood, and similar to how it went last time, the geometry of the blade here is actually quite good for feather sticking these softer woods because it's actually fairly sharp, and I've batoned with it twice now through all of this wood, plus I hadn't sharpened it after coming back from removing the invasives. There's no rolls or edge damage or anything. It's still fairly sharp. So whoever heat treated the file that was made into this blade actually did a fairly good job on it. But we can see on the pine we actually get pretty decent feathers on here. You definitely could start a fire with that. The red oak, of course, is a harder wood. And now I want to say that the handle probably doesn't look the most comfortable, but if you hold it not where the finger grooves are, it's not that bad. If you hold it where the finger grooves are, it's very uncomfortable. But if you just hold it where your hand naturally wants to go and just disregard the finger grooves entirely, it's not that bad. And also not that bad, these feathers, not the greatest. With the little bit thicker profile, I mean, it's pretty thick. It gets thick right behind the edge. With the little bit thicker profile, it doesn't want to get into the wood, but once you get in, it does a pretty good job of going through it. Whereas on the softer wood, it bites because it's sharp, and then the thicker edge profile just helps it kind of wedge the wood apart. So you definitely could get a fire going with this. And this is, like I said, red oak, which is a pretty hard wood. So, Mom, what do you think of the dog head knife?
It does feathers stick well, but I like the patoning because the blade is long, so you can tap on that pretty easily, but also because the handle is metal, you can hit both sides. So in case it's angling on you, you're able to hit both sides with the baton.
Right, which is something that happened in the first take, the one that we thought we were recording but weren't. Like I said, we hit a knot in the oak, and what happened is the knot was around here, and so when I hit here on the blade, it was going like this, but since this handle's all metal, I was able to just smack the handle with the baton and bring the knife blade back down. So yeah, overall, you wouldn't think that this knife would be a particularly practical knife. It actually does a lot better than you would expect that it would. But overall, I do think that this is more of a collection piece than a user, but I definitely think that this is one of the more unique or strange knives that you're ever going to see. And at least out of knives that was not trying intentionally to be strange. I think that the person was legitimately just trying to make a knife for themselves. And yeah, this is the result. It's weird, but I like it, and it'll stay in the collection forever. So any last thoughts, Ma, before we wrap this up?
Oh, it seems like you would be able to attach it to a gun barrel for a bayonet. That's the shape of it to me.
Yeah, I definitely could see that too. So thanks for tuning in. We hope that you like the review. We hope that you think that this is weird but fun. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. And now for the final part of the review for the dog knife. We're going to see what Rickety Rat the cat says about the dog knife. Rick, what do you think of that one? Do you like that? No, she says no. That's not her favorite. But I wouldn't have expected the cat to like dogs that much. Well, that's the end of our review for the dog head knife. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you soon.